arises. Well, Aristotle had an answer to why they're seeking their natural place. And that was taken to be the appropriate answer for thousands of years, when Galileo and others said, let's be puzzled about this. Let's just not take it for granted because it comes from authority. And when you start being puzzled about it, modern science begins. You see you don't know the answers. And when you try to find out the answers, they break down. It shows that all sorts of intuitions are just wildly off. And you finally, out of this, slowly comes modern science. And I think that's what's been happening in the study of language since roughly the early 1950s, approximately. A lot of things that seemed completely obvious were looked at carefully, and they all turned out to be extremely puzzling. So I'll take a simple example, which has kind of evolved in industry of analysis. Take the sentence, a short sentence. Can eagles that fly swim? Okay, we all understand it. We know that the word can is associated with swim, not fly. We're asking, can they swim, not can they fly? Similarly, we can say things like, are eagles that fly swimming? But we can't say, are eagles that flying swim? Actually, if you think about it, that's a fine thought. It says, are the eagles that are flying swimming too? So are eagles that flying swim? But you just can't say it that way. That thought can't be expressed in that form. Well, you know, if you think about it, it was taken for granted for forever that was just sort of intuitively obvious. But if you think about it, it's not at all obvious. Aristotle defined language as a sound with meaning. Well, what the pursuit of this inquiry tends to show is that that's not correct, that actually language is meaning with sound. And it need not be sound. It can be sign or some other mode of externalization. That's a big difference. It means that the core character of language is the set of principles that yield structured expressions and assign them a meaning. And that part of language is probably, we can't show it yet, but it looks like it's uniform among humans. It doesn't seem to vary much, and if we knew enough, maybe at all. It's just a core property of humans that we have this set of principles that yields an unbounded array of structural expressions that have a semantic interpretation that means something. And when you look into it, it's pretty strange what it means, and that just seems to be shared among humans altogether. There's no known difference among remote tribes in Papua who haven't had other human contact for tens of thousands of years, and children who grow up here. And if you interchange them at infancy, they'll grow into their own society without any problem. So that seems to be a core property of human nature. The externalization, what we call the sound part, is marginal. And it also follows from that communication is marginal. I mean, it's kind of like a dogma among even scientists who write about these topics, that language is basically a means of communication and evolved as a means of communication. You look at current publications on evolution of language, that's just taken for granted. It apparently is all false. It turns out that from a closer analysis of language, that it's actually